This woman had just found her neighbor lying soaked in blood after a gruesome attack.
Oh, where's his injuries at? I don't know. I have not touched him.
On April 8, 2020, detectives stepped into a nightmare with the trail ran cold. No weapon, no fingerprints, no witnesses.
Whoever did this knows exactly where he is went. Those are the two that come down here. Those two are the suspects. I'm telling you, there's nobody else. Them two.
All they had was a number of suspects and a string of accusations.
If you're asking, did I kill Mr. King? No. You did not? No, I did not.
Got a gun in there?
What I've been told, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of stories flying.
But in search for the truth, detectives would soon find themselves drawn into a secret hideout, revealing a shocking truth no one saw coming.
Akron 911, what's the location of your emergency?
Oh my God. What is
Problem.
What's the problem, ma'am? Okay, your neighbor's laying on the floor with blood everywhere. Is he...
What? There's what?
Ma'am, is he breathing?
No, I don't know. I'm not
Just stay outside there. We've got help on the way.
Oh my God.
On the morning of April 8, 2020, Akron Police Department received a frantic call from a woman named Sarah Evans, claiming that she had found her 69-year-old neighbor, Benjamin Benny King, dead. Kevin Evans of Akron PD, a patrol officer, was the first to rush to the scene of the emergency. Activating his body cam shortly after arriving, he captured every harrowing detail of what unfolded next. They were greeted by a chaotic scene, drawing them straight into a perfect investigative nightmare.
The back door's unlocked. It's never unlocked. And I see that, His doors are open right here. All his cupboard doors are open in the kitchen, and that's not normal.
We're gonna go hang out over there for us so you can bring the work here?
The scene was gruesome, drenched in blood, and obscuring any clear details. Yet the officers knew instantly, this was no accident. The forensics team then rushed in to analyze the crime scene. They were to report what they suspected had transpired that morning.
This is either a suicide or a murder. Yeah. Okay. Because there's blood all over the wall, I might guess the ladder, but you can take a look yourself. Oh, where's his injuries at? I don't know. I have not touched him. All I did was touch him to see if he was stiff, but he's stiff and cold. So we're calling it obvious. Yeah, I'm not gonna move him. We'll let me. Okay.
At first, their suspicions leaned toward suicide. The deceased was an old man living alone with no family. But as they stepped into the room, they were met with a horrifying discovery that shattered that assumption. All these signs pointed to some painful last moments. The pattern at the wall revealed a harrowing clue. It was the result of a relentless, repetitive stabbing until death. The injuries were spanned out all through Benjamin's head to hands, a proof of his futile attempt to protect himself. The scene was a frenzy of violence with overkill so savage it made the motive clear. This wasn't a random act. It was something deeply personal.
Start a crime scene log, get a hold of DB and get somebody out here. Yeah. All right, one of you guys want to call DB and then...
I'll call him.
Database forensics were called to help investigators solve the puzzle that lay in front of them. Upon searching the house, the detectives realized that the crime scene was packed with clues just waiting to be found. However, downstairs, they were about to uncover something that would point directly to the motive.
All the cabinets here are open. I mean, who does this?
We searched the entire house. It was truly a bizarre scene. It all kind of fit that someone came in, robbed him of something, and killed him.
But the real question remained, who could have done this? What were they looking for, and had they found it? Meanwhile, the investigators noted down details that Sarah, the 911 caller, provided about what was now a homicide case.
Dead, isn't he? Oh my God.
What's this?
Look at him. Or just go look.
1 second. Make some dish from me real fast.
Oh my God, I live right here.
What is his name?
Benjamin King.
Benjamin King?
Uh-huh.
She was a good friend of Benny. She lived just a few doors down. She would go and check on him every day, practically. On this particular day, She went up late morning to check on him. The front door was locked and discovered that the back door was unlocked. She went in and called for him, checked on him, and discovered his body upstairs.
Next, Sarah revealed a detail that would get the detectives' noses to the ground.
Last night Justin was over here. He was with Johnny. Benny didn't want him there, and Benny come down with his gun. So,
You got a gun in there?
it's what I've been told. I don't know.
So who just confirmed all that up?
I don't know. There's a lot of stories flying. I don't know what.
The detectives knew that some of these stories weren't just rumors. They could be clues in disguise. Justin and Johnny were brothers who visited Benny a lot. At first, they all seemed to get along well, but then, out of nowhere, Benny no longer wanted to see them. His disdain for the brothers, especially Justin, grew so intense that one day Benny drew his licensed gun to warn them against showing up at his house again. The entire narrative intrigued the detectives, not only because of the hidden conflict, but also due to the significant age difference between Benny and the brothers. What could have made them meet so often? As the detectives pieced together the mystery, they hoped Benjamin's daughter, Patricia, could potentially fill in the blanks as they broke the news to her. The daughter told the investigators she would be down to the crime scene as soon as she could. Meanwhile, the officers were uncovering one lead after another against Justin.
We learned that Justin had a pretty bad drug problem, so he was always looking for something, always looking for money, for handouts. Benny loaned him some property that I think he believed Justin had pawned for money for drugs.
Intense arguments and a long history of disagreement hinted that money might have been a key factor in Benny's murder. As suspicion grew around Justin, the detectives realized this was just the beginning of a dark and twisted journey.
On my parents' porch, and I saw this goldish, older style Hummer, big body Hummer, speed away from over here. I didn't hear no noises like gunshots or anything.
Okay.
But
How about what time what was that?
Probably 10:30, 11ish.
Did you happen to see who was driving?
A white male.
Okay.
A Hummer had been spotted around the time of Benny's murder, stopping briefly for 15 to 20 minutes before screeching away. Whether this detail would prove valuable to investigators remained uncertain, as the exact time of death had yet to be confirmed. However, if they could trace the vehicle back to Justin, their prime suspect, it might be the breakthrough they needed to close in on the killer.
So fast his tires were squealing.
Okay. All right, brother?
Yep.
Then another neighbor stepped forward with crucial information. He was about to reveal a detail that would confirm that the detectives were not only on the right track, but very close to the killer.
So you're just assuming Jaybird being connected to a Hummer?
Correct. I know that I've seen him many times with
a Hummer?
Yeah, Hummer.
What color?
What for that truck? It's like a dusty gold like that.
So you've seen Jaybird driving this Volvo Hummer?
Yeah.
They believed they had a new suspect, Jaybird, until the investigators discovered the true identity of the person behind the name Jaybird.
We learned that Justin went by Jaybird, and that's what the neighbor was using. The spotting of the Hummer raised our interest in Justin. 10 to 15 minutes is definitely enough time to commit a murder. He was definitely a suspect that we needed to talk to.
The detectives were confident that they were closing in on the truth with the pieces of information they had gathered. But then Patricia arrived with her husband and claimed to know something that would completely shift the direction of the case.
Obviously, he passed away. But,
She said she knew who had killed Benny.
Did you talk to that down there?
Patricia harbored intense emotions toward Sarah Evans. Patricia believed Sarah was not only after this dark opportunity for a long time, but she also had a much darker motive.
That lady down there has been paying his bills, and she's been taking all his money. So I don't have a bill to say, because she's not giving him the bills. She's keeping them. She is writing on the receipts what she is supposed to pay versus what she really paid.
Patricia told the investigators that Sarah was manipulating the kind man that her father, Benny, was. The police had not suspected Sarah of any foul play yet, but now they began to wonder if they overlooked a person who was not only always close to Benny, but was also the first one to find him dead.
She took upon herself to help him.
There we go.
And that's her way to get, by taking his money.
But Patricia knew something about Benny's money, and the case was about to take a dramatic and unexpected turn.
And his money better still be in there because I know exactly where it's at.
Where?
It's in a cabinet in his kitchen and a coffee cup.
Benny had saved a few $1,000s for his own cremation, not wanting to leave his daughter with the burden of his last rites. Patricia knew where he had kept the money and led the police to the spot.
Put it in the car. It's in there like this.
Was it in there?
No, it's in a container like this. Yep. It was in here. So whoever did this knows exactly where he hid his money. And she's one, and Johnny, those are the two that come down here. Those two are the suspects. I'm telling you, there's nobody else. Them two.
With Patricia certain of the killer's identity, the detectives had one job: to uncover the truth and determine if her suspicions held up. Sarah and Johnny knew where Benny kept his money, but there was someone else who knew about it too: Justin. At this point, both the brothers became the prime suspects, and it did not take long for the police to locate their address. The detectives decided to show up unalarmed and catch them off guard.
When you make initial contact with people, especially when you're investigating a homicide, you kind of gauge what their initial reaction is.
However, when they arrived, they only found Justin's brother, Johnny. Without hesitation, the detectives sat him down for an urgent interview.
Do you go over and see him quite often?
Yep, sure do. Go over and drink a beer with him just about every day.
Okay. So you last saw him yesterday about 7:30 in the evening? Or?
Yeah, what's this all about?
He's dead.
You gotta be kidding me, dude.
No, I'm not. That's why I'm here.
Johnny appeared shocked when he learned about Benny's murder, or at least that's how it seemed. He was calm and composed with the police. His reactions convinced them of his sincerity. He openly shared details, including the disagreement between his brother Justin and Benny.
He told him, look, get away from my house, don't you ever come back again. He said, I've loaned you money 4 or 5 times. I'm on a fixed income here. I can't just keep giving.
Yeah. He physically pushed him?
Oh, yeah.
According to what Johnny had told the investigators, Benny had lent some money to Justin like many other people. But Justin's drug problems got him back to Benny's door in no time, which became the trouble between the two. However, Johnny did not feel the conflict was anything serious on either side.
It was very important to find Justin because he had some animosity toward King. He was in the area that morning, so we definitely needed to get face-to-face with Justin at that point.
Justin's Hummer was found near the crime scene. He knew exactly where Benny kept his money, and they had argued over it. Despite Johnny dismissing these clues as mere coincidence, the police couldn't ignore the mounting evidence. They made finding the missing Justin their top priority.
So at this point, I thought I had good leads as to what happened. The mystery was deepening.
Akron PD sent a broadcast alert to all the other police stations in the area, with instructions to provide any information related to the whereabouts of Justin. Within a day, he was not only located, but also brought in for the questioning. However, soon there's going to be another twist in the story. What the cops were about to find would be the exact opposite of what they had hoped for.
Hey, Justin. Sergeant Sarvati. So, how do you know him? What is your relationship with him? Can you kind of take us through that?
My brother, Mr. King, had known each other for over 30-something years. I just grew up as a kid going around Mr. King. He was more or less like a stepfather, pretty much.
How so?
I mean, he was a guy that just bought cars and, never shook a stick at giving you $1 or a cigarette or something to eat, or, you know what I mean? I lived next door to him there for probably, maybe 4 or 5 months.
Justin tried to appear as if he had nothing against Benny, but every word that came out of his mouth was taken with a grain of salt.
We were very interested, obviously, in his whereabouts, for the past 48 hours relating to Mr. King's death.
We listened intently to see if what he's saying matches with any of the facts.
Justin tried to give it the colors of a family drama, but the man he referred to as his stepfather had allegedly threatened him with a gun. Naturally, the detectives were eager to dig deeper into their relationship dynamics.
So we talked to everybody in the neighborhood, and they basically said the same thing, that he was a walking saint, except for one person that they said he banned from the house.
Was me.
Is that over money?
Yeah, it was over money. I was with my brother at his house. I told you he was drinking beer with over there.
He say anything about a shotgun?
Yeah, he did. He told my brother, he's like, I should take my shotgun down there and pump a couple of the twids in it.
The clock was ticking by, and Justin was still going on about his tussle with Benny as a sweet memory he cherished. It was time for the investigators to confront him upright.
If you're asking, did I kill Mr. King? No.
You did not?
No, I did not.
We asked him, well, okay, if you didn't do it, what do you think happened?
Then, Justin revealed a name that would force the investigation to take another shocking turn in this already twisted mystery.
The only thing that my brother John was talking about was the girl down at the edge of the corner at the Grain Corner house. She knew she took Ben's bank card to the bank, food stamps. That's what my brother was telling me on the phone the other day. And he thinks that she might have had something to do with it. So if I point a finger, I'd probably check her for sure.
Sarah Evans, the woman Patricia had accused, was now suspected by both Justin and Johnny.
Now, with the daughter, what she told us, that Miss Evans was scamming him, we had to look at, different suspects. But at that point, I wasn't discounting the possibility that we were looking at the killer. We had a deep mystery on our hands. We were trying to get as much information, looking at all angles, but we were no closer to solving Mr. King's murder.
The police pressed Sarah into an interview. Although she had provided a detailed account of how she found Benny dead, the police had not yet questioned her about the allegations about siphoning money from him.
She was a definite suspect, so we brought her in for what we consider a formal questioning.
The interview began with the detectives questioning her about the bills that she was paying for Benny, but it would end with a surprise.
You understand that you would pay his bills?
Well, that's where we had a dispute, but it wasn't between anything. It was between me and him. It was me and his daughter. I went to pay his bill. One bill, I didn't pay $40 on it. I needed to borrow that. He said, "Go ahead." Did not remember. I paid him back his $40. That's why I was still around here.
What kind of bill?
It was electric bill. That I paid $40. I paid for 40 taxes when I only got paid. You know, I was in stretch with my bills too, but I take them back. That's why I was up there.
That would you weren't there.
Just wanted his daughter to go pay the bills now, so we didn't have a problem with that.
Her answers so far didn't reveal much. It was not enough to either question her innocence or to free her of any suspicion. So the cops decided to move on to the part where Benny was brutally killed. They asked her who all had visited Benny, and that is when an unfamiliar name came up.
Sarah gave me a little history of her son, Jason Shockley. She said that he had emotional problems, he was a drug addict, trouble with the law.
Jason Shockley was a new name to the investigation, and they had nothing to be suspicious about, until Sarah revealed a surprising detail about him.
He's got out of prison in some soil.
Oh, when did he get out of prison?
In September.
What was he in jail for?
Robbery.
This was the moment cops uncovered a possible solid connection to remove all confusion once and for all. Benny was robbed, and a professional robber lived one house down the row. The investigators were onto something.
When I point blank asked her about her son, Jason, her whole body language changed. She became very uncomfortable.
Would your son be capable of something like this?
Oh God, I pray not. No, I would pray not.
Sarah's change in behavior did not go unnoticed by the detectives, and now they were registering a hesitation and deliberate attempt to throw them off the scent when they could clearly tell there was more to the story.
After that response, it's all started to click in a way. My belief that she knew about the coffee can, but her denial, I think what was going through her mind was, oh my God, I think I might have mentioned that, and Jason knew about it, and his propensity to rob people and his addiction. She probably was thinking, oh my God, it is possible. Now all the puzzle pieces are starting to fit, and we have a new suspect.
Despite the detectives' initial enthusiasm, they couldn't spring to action for the next few days. Jason had seemed to have disappeared, and they could not locate him. And without Jason, they had no lead and no direction. It had been about 6 weeks since Benny was killed, and even though detectives had a very strong suspicion who this killer might be, it wasn't enough to officially consider him a suspect, nor had they been able to track him down. Benny's daughter was losing hope of ever finding justice for her beloved father.
Growing up, it was just me and my sister. We didn't see eye and eye together at all, but in my dad's eyes, I was perfect. I didn't do no wrong. He wanted the best for me. He wanted to make sure that I was well taken care of. He wanted to make sure that I did everything I wanted to do growing up. I was always sheltered, so I didn't get to go out and do a lot of things. He made sure I was safe.
However, just then, a new discovery was about to unearth a chilling truth that had been hidden about Sarah.
We had an inmate who was in the Summit County Jail call us and said that he had overheard a conversation that Jason Shockley made while he was in jail with him about Mr. King, directly relating to why it happened.
The detectives were quick to arrange an interview and were very eager to hear what this informer had to say.
So I'm told, you told one of the deputies, you got some information about a homicide?
That's about the old guy that got stabbed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, his mother found the body. Everybody in the neighborhood know the kid did it. His son, her son.
Okay. How do you know this?
Yeah, he called me. Well, I seen him a couple days after it happened, and he told me everything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then I heard him and his mom arguing on the phone. It wasn't going to go that far. Because she always going over the house, cleaning up when she's been doing that for years.
Mm-hmm.
What could Jason and Sarah possibly be discussing about Benny? This new connection came with 3 haunting possibilities. Sarah, after years of scamming Benny, finally killed him for his last savings. Jason robbed and killed Benny, with Sarah covering for him. Sarah and Jason, a criminal duo, had been working together all along, draining Benny's fortune bit by bit until they finally split his last remaining wealth in cold blood.
This was a big break as far as what the inmate told us, but again, it was hard to prove. We had no evidence from the murder.
We have all this information. Jason Shockley is our #1 suspect. It was imperative that we find him.
The trail was leading to Sarah. Although her son was lying underground, they could still reach her. But just as they were about to close in on her, something happened. An event so inexplicable that it would leave the detectives questioning everything they thought they knew.
Akron Police and Fire, Canty.
Hi, my name is George Bayless. I'm down in Florida now, but my father's still up in Akron.
On May 21st, 2020, in Akron, another 911 call was made. It was a man named George Ballas requesting a welfare check for his elderly father, Gary Ballas.
We haven't been able to get a hold of him, and some of his neighbors got a hold of me today, too, and said they haven't seen him since Saturday. They said there were some people over there they didn't really recognize.
Alright, so we have it in. We're going to get someone over there to check it out, and then we can give you a follow-up call.
Gary Ballas and Benny King were about to be tied in a most bizarre manner, and it would all begin with a simple welfare check.
Gary! Akron Police! Gary, it's Akron Police! Gary!
The investigators found Gary Ballas deceased in the living room.
When we arrived on scene, it was pretty clear that we had a mystery. All we had was a deceased male with multiple stab wounds to his chest and his neck. It was pretty clear, based off the odor and the condition of the body, that he had been dead for at least a few days.
Gary had been stabbed multiple times and robbed, just like the crime these cops had witnessed 6 weeks ago.
This is going to be probably a homicide by stabbing, and they took his car most likely. So I got 22 working on a bolo. I'm going to try to get another car here or two so we can start doing a canvas.
It looked like the nightmarish history was repeating itself. Just like Benny, Gary was an elderly man who was much admired and loved by the society. As Benny was survived by his daughter, Gary Ballas was survived by his son.
Overall, he was just very kind to people, almost to a fault. I called the police and asked them to do a welfare check. I just had a feeling. I told my wife, I said, if they put a detective on the phone, then he's not there anymore.
While investigating Gary's homicide, the detectives came upon a string of discoveries that would only make this mystery more complex.
Sunday, he was out there with that guy with the cane.
Sunday, I think it was Sunday, that he saw him with some guy that had a cane.
Have you seen the guy with the cane before?
No.
Nope, never seen him before.
Yeah, and then they got in the car and left one period, but that's the last I seen.
Got in what car? Gary's?
Gary's, yeah.
The investigators were closing in on an older man, leaning on a cane and likely around Gary's age. But then, a new twist changed everything. Gary's stolen car was caught on camera, and the investigators felt a chill, realizing they were now just steps away from solving the case.
We put the bolo out on Gary's car the night of the incident. We had learned that the vehicle went to several different gas stations, several of them in the area. So another detective was able to obtain video from the gas stations from May 16th of 2020. The videos just had the suspect with the victim's vehicle.
Unfortunately, they could see Gary's stolen car, but could not identify the man who was driving it. However, within hours, a man contacted them with a name. As it turned out, it was a name the detectives already knew too well.
Jason came over Saturday morning. He was going to help me work on the house I'm working on. He said, I'll take you. And I said, wait a minute, Jason. I said, I'm not getting in no hot car. I said, is that car hot? He said, no, the car's not hot. I wouldn't do you like that. The car's not hot. He said, my friend let me use it. He went to Florida.
What kind of car was it? You said it was a bluish car?
It's a bluish color. I don't even know what kind of car it is, but I know what I saw. And when I read that description of the car, I put two and two together.
Okay.
The man who could be connected to the murder of Gary Ballas was none other than Jason Shockley.
We did a photo lineup. It has 6 photos to see if he could pick out our suspect.
That's it. Yes, right here.
Okay, go ahead and take the picture out on top.
Just like that, Jason was the prime suspect in another murder.
Jason was a danger to our community, and at this point, he was unpredictable. We didn't know if Jason would kill again. We knew we had to get him off the streets as quickly as possible.
The detectives were beginning to grasp that Jason's capabilities went far beyond what they had initially believed. He was establishing a chilling pattern, and the police's inability to catch him had only fueled his audacity. Now the detectives were about to bring Sarah in again, but this time she called them first, terrified and revealing the most unexpected twist in this story yet.
She was very emotional. She was concerned about her own safety, putting herself in danger by giving us this information. And that's why I think she was telling us exactly where to locate him, because Jason was so unpredictable.
Investigators from both Gary's and Benny's cases were now following up on the location provided by Sarah. She was most recently being considered Jason's partner in crime, and now had provided the lead that could change everything. The detectives were uncertain of what they'd find next, but Jason's long criminal history left them no choice but to trust her. According to Sarah, an abandoned building held all the answers the cops were looking for.
I went to the house. And there were several uniformed officers, Lieutenant Wynn and myself. At this point, we thought Jason would be armed and dangerous. We made entry through an open window on the front porch.
Watch that.
When making a dynamic entry, you're trying to get in as many people as quickly as possible.
Jason wasn't just wanted for 2 murders. His criminal record was lengthy and he had a knack for slipping past the law. The investigators could not afford to let him slide this time. They fanned out, covering every potential attack point in the abandoned building. Detectives were not prepared for what was about to happen in the next moment.
Hands, motherfucker! Hands! Hands, motherfucker! Hands! Don't move.
Roll over and put them on the top of your head. Roll on your stomach, hands and behind your back. Let's go. Hurry up, Jason.
Right, I got you.
It looked like he had been hiding out there for quite some time. With Jason lying there chilling around, they also found a crucial piece of evidence that connected him with Gary.
When we apprehended Jason, we found Gary Dallas's credit cards on him, so we knew we had our guy. We arrested him and brought him into the police station.
The arrest of this dangerous man was the price of possession. However, the dark secrets were yet to be revealed in the interrogation room.
After you went talking to detectives.
When we put somebody in an interview room, the cameras start immediately.
The wait seemed to be finally over, and the cops were about to get all the answers they hoped for.
All right, so I'm Detective Kennedy. This is Sergeant Salazzi. I'm investigating an incident that happened the other day. How do you know Gary Bayless?
Just a few days ago, me and him was cooking flowers off of bushes, and he was taking them around to the neighbors.
Like, how long ago was that? Today's Friday.
1 day or something like that.
Jason had no idea why he had been arrested. It could have been for one of his petty crimes or something far more serious. Determined to outsmart the detectives, he decided to test the waters.
Confronted him about Gary Bayless and Benny King. He actually spoke highly of both of them, said he wouldn't do anything to hurt them.
The detectives knew Jason was playing games. What would it take to get a confession from him?
When I'd see him out and about, hey Gary, how you doing? Or I'd go over, step up on him like, hey, how you doing today, Gary?
He tried to guard his mother, yet it was his mother, Sarah, who had revealed his horrifying secret to the police. He attempted to shield Sarah from the accusations, but it was Sarah herself who had exposed his dark secret.
And Benny accused my mom of skimming money, which really wasn't skimming. Like, he forgot that he told her she wanted $40. I used to go with her right up there to book door when she paid his bill.
Jason, all I'm telling you that points to you.
It's not going to point to
you. You are.
It's not going to point to me. It can't point to me. That's what I'm saying. It can't point to me. I didn't do nothing to him.
Jason believed he was manipulating the interrogators very well, but he had already revealed the biggest giveaway. This one slip-up would get him arrested.
Pretty early on in the interview, we knew he was lying, so we just had to kind of let everything play out. It was definitely a mystery from the get-go. We did have the information about the gentleman with the cane. So early in the interview, he indicated that he walks with a cane. Right then, it kind of clicked that, hey, this is the guy that the neighbors seen leaving Gary Bayless's house. After Jason denied killing both men, we started to break him down.
When the interrogators had enough, they confronted Jason outright.
You know, Jason, you can deny it and deny it. And when it goes to court, it goes to a jury, and the judge hears it all, and they convict you, you're going to get more time than if you do something. Tell us what happened.
The detectives were using every tactic in their arsenal, including a pointed question to Jason. If you really cared about Gary, why haven't you asked about what happened to him yet? The unspoken accusation was clear. He hadn't asked because he was the one who'd killed him. Just as they pressed harder, Jason made a surprising request.
You want me to turn it off? Stop. I'm not erasing anything.
I'm saying,
You want the first one?
I'm gonna tell you what we're looking at.
There, it's completely off.
The investigators turned the recorder off because they knew the CCTV behind them recorded the entire conversation anyway.
There, it's completely off.
The moment of truth was finally here.
He's over there drinking all that stuff, smoking. And I guess my mom had borrowed $20 from him for stuff.
Okay.
He got to talking a little crazy about that.
Okay.
I asked him like very stuff. So I'm like, you know what, I gotta go. To get up to leave and throw his cup at me.
However, the interrogators already knew by now whatever was coming their way, at best, would be a half-baked truth.
So I'm like, you know what, I gotta go. To get up to leave and throw his cup at me. And it had wine in it. Picked up his knife, and it was just like, I just turned around real quick.
What happened, Kevin?
I pushed him down, dropped the knife, and took the knife. That's exactly what really freaked me out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, then when I pushed him down in the chair real quick, like, I dropped the knife, I picked up the knife. He was like, shoot you, and that's when I just blacked out and must have stabbed.
So when you stabbed him, you stabbed him with the right hand or are you right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
The investigators then moved on to his first victim, Benjamin King, but he was adamant that he did not do it.
Everything you told us about Gary, I think it happened with Benny.
Yeah, I didn't do Benny.
Everything we had for the Benny King homicide was all circumstantial, but it was pretty strong circumstantial evidence. It was almost like a mirror between the two cases. Too many similarities to deny that he was involved in both.
Jason would not confess the crime against Benny, but after the interrogation, the pieces were already falling into place. There were major giveaways, and the investigators had a theory.
We knew that Jason Shockley knew Benny because of his mother. I think Jason found out about the coffee can and the money. He went in, he looked for the coffee can, he found it. He went upstairs, and Benny woke up. I think he started fighting with Jason. Jason just started stabbing him. Benny stood up, went out to the hall, collapsed and died.
Same went for Gary. The investigators did not buy the self-defense version of events that Jason had fabricated.
We also knew Jason and Gary were spending some time together and drinking wine. He asked Gary to use the car. I'm assuming that Gary refused that. It upset Jason, and that's when he shoved Gary to the ground and ended up stabbing and killing Gary in order to try to get some money. We did not find the murder weapon for the Gary Bayless or the Benny King homicide.
The investigators made a strong case against Jason. Even though the interrogation failed to procure a clear confession, the investigative team had gathered evidence with which they hoped to see justice prevail.
Both cases, Benny and Gary's, were a whodunit from the start. With Benny's, we had no real evidence. With Gary, it was days after we discovered his body. It was mysterious as to who and why anyone would do this. Other than the fact of what Jason did after Gary's murder, I don't think that these would have been solved.
Jason Shockley was convicted for life in prison for Benny King and Gary Ballas. 2 investigators from different cases had come together to catch Jason and arrested him on his track to become an elder killer.
Through these cases, unfortunately, under these circumstances, you just get to meet some great people in the worst time of their life. And what's memorable to me, having done hundreds of these cases, is it's always that chance to bring something positive out of a terrible situation for a family.
Jason ripped more than the precious last years that these elderly men had for their families.
I don't understand why they didn't just come break in, take the money, and leave. But they took everything, down to pennies, everything. My father was a very good man. He would help anybody.
He's just an amazing person, and there's nobody like him. And I miss him and I'd want him back, but I can't say those things, so that's why I'm saying them here.
Jason Shockley's unwavering loyalty to his mother during the interrogation and their conversation in prison is unforgettable. Could Sarah have known about Jason's intentions long before Gary died, and could he have been saved? Let us know in the comments section below.
I don't remember how I killed him.
She had fried the head in a deep-fat fryer.
All I remember, I get up, like I said, and I found him in a trash bag.
She stated that she had cooked some of his ribs in the oven, put some barbecue sauce on it, and actually tasted it.
She said it tasted sweet, just like I like it.
I wish I knew how I killed him, though.
This seemingly composed lady was 23-year-old Omema Ari Nelson, who had just discovered her 56-year-old husband, William Edwin Nelson, otherwise known as Bill, dead, and appeared unable to fully process the situation. However, what awaited everyone was far more sinister than anyone could imagine.
The downstairs neighbor heard the garbage disposal running and grinding the entire weekend. Like a motor under stress.
However, only if she could have stopped just at the killing of her husband on Thanksgiving Day of November 28th, 1991. But instead, she decided to go far beyond any human could think of.
2 women, there was blood all over them, and they walk and say, he must die, he must die.
The truth investigators would soon uncover was far darker than anyone dared to believe.
It ranks as the most gruesome crime scene that I've ever encountered.
And that was kind of in the back of everybody's mind at that time. Are we going to turn up another Jeffrey Dahmer?
On December 1st, 1991, a frantic call to U.S. Emergency Services set off a chilling investigation into a murder that would haunt Orange County forever. Jose Esquivel, a friend of Omema Nelson, reported that his friend had killed her husband, who reportedly abused her and was now offering him $75,000 to help dispose of the body. The police quickly mobilized, racing to uncover the truth behind this horrifying claim. When officers located Omema driving her husband Bill's red 1975 Corvette, they found eerie trash bags in the vehicle. Bill Nelson, as he was known, had been reported missing after failing to show up for work following Thanksgiving weekend. They stopped her car and sorted through the stuff kept in it as Omema looked on quietly. In the car, they found something unsettling, which further investigation determined to be human flesh. This shocking discovery led to Omema being immediately taken into custody for questioning, where she seemed fully cooperative.
She immediately denied everything that had been reported by Mr. Esquivel to the police department. She told officers that she had no way to get in touch with him. She really hadn't lived with him very long.
She seems cooperative, but the answers that she's giving to questions are a little bit bizarre.
The investigation then led police to their apartment in Costa Mesa, California, where they stumbled upon a scene that would become notorious in true crime history. As they entered the apartment, they found Bill, but not in the way they had anticipated, and it seemed like they were walking into a slaughterhouse. Bill's remains were stuffed into suitcases, buried beneath piles of cardboard boxes. The police discovered human flesh and organs wrapped in bags on the floor, alongside a broken table lamp and a heavy clothing iron stained with blood and human hair.
As you began to look more closely, you would see a little drop of blood on the doorknob, you'd see a little drop of blood on a wall, maybe some blood on a carpet.
Once we started opening the trash bags, it became apparent that there were more body parts.
As officers continued their grim search, they found Bill's bedroom in utter disarray. The bedpost had been ripped off and splintered, and the mattress was soaked with blood. The most shocking discovery awaited them in the freezer. Bill's head wrapped in tinfoil, revealing stab wounds and showing signs of having been deep fried. They also discovered 2 of the bedposts broken and blood-soaked, indicating Bill had been tied up and killed mercilessly.
She had fried the head in a deep-fat fryer, so it was pretty badly burned. It was completely soaked with blood through and through, as well as the box springs.
It ranks as the most gruesome crime scene that I've ever encountered.
In the bathroom, the horror escalated. Bill's chest and torso hung over the bathtub, skinned and carved, left to bleed into the tub as if it were a butcher shop. His body had been castrated. Moving into the kitchen, police found pots and pans left on the stove containing what appeared to be a stew. Among the vegetables and turkey meat were Bill Nelson's hands submerged in the concoction with bruises on them. It appeared that he'd been tightly tied up before being murdered. In the trash bin, bits of his hips were mixed with cranberry sauce, a grim twist on Thanksgiving leftovers. This horrifying tableau painted a picture of unimaginable horror. The chilling details of this case would go on to draw comparisons to fictional horror stories as investigators worked to uncover how such a tragedy could unfold within what was supposed to be a loving marriage.
It appears to be organs. We have a coroner's investigator that responds to the scene. And he said, yeah, you see little black spots on the lung? I said, yeah. He said, that's carbon, and that's from smoking.
At that point, we had a homicide.
His hip area was found disguised with the attributes of a Thanksgiving meal: peas, corn, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce. His hands were found in a fryer. His head was found in the freezer, amidst frozen vegetables and frozen foods.
They find garbage bags inside suitcases that have been just saturated with fluids and flesh, and there's blood everywhere. I mean, this was literally unbelievable.
With Bill's dismembered body, the police couldn't immediately identify the cause of death due to the body's condition. The officers were certain that it was Bill, but to be fully sure and to unravel the mystery behind this soul-shaking murder, they delved deep into Omema's past, and what they discovered was going to be among the most disturbing discoveries of their careers. Omema Ari Nelson's life began in a small, impoverished farming village in southern Egypt near the Sudanese border in 1968. Born into a conservative Arabic household as one of 16 children, her early years were marked by hardship and trauma. Her father had a bad temper and was abusive, subjecting her to both physical and sexual assault from a young age. The scars of her childhood were deepened by the horrific tradition of female circumcision, which she endured at the age of just 7. This was a painful procedure that left her in constant agony and made intimacy nothing but a source of terror. As she grew older, her mother made the difficult decision to divorce her father and move to Cairo, an Egyptian city infamous for its homes built around cemeteries, known as the City of the Dead. In this bleak environment, Omema faced further challenges. The agony she endured not only affected her ability to form intimate relationships, but also instilled a profound sense of fear and vulnerability. Despite all the hardships, Omema blossomed into a strikingly beautiful and vibrant young woman. By the time she turned 18 in 1986, Omema's life took yet another dramatic twist. She met Roger Stainbrook, an American oil worker working on contract in Egypt. Drawn to him and the promise of a new life, she got romantically involved with him. Though her mother was hesitant about the cross-cultural relationship, she eventually accepted the relationship with a possible fear that no Egyptian man would accept her. With the hopes of freedom and new opportunities, Omema moved with him to Texas, United States. But what awaited her there was only another chapter of hardship. Soon, the cracks in their relationship began to show, and before long, their marriage ended. Still a teenager, Omema found herself stranded and alone in a foreign city with only a grasp of English and no one to turn to. Determined to survive, Omaima took on odd jobs like being a nanny or waitress, but these alone couldn't sustain her. She even ended up getting arrested briefly for robbing a pharmacy. And at another point, she attacked 2 security guards who caught her stealing in a department store. She worked as a part-time model too, but soon realized that her beauty could be used for her better survival.
She had this attraction to men, and she could play pool, and she was very articulate and very friendly.
What she was good with was her sexuality. She could get men to do things for her, and she used her sexuality to get what she wanted.
She lured men in, entrancing them with her striking appearance, only to rob them once they were at their most vulnerable. A risky game she played to survive. Omaima would get men in a compromising position, tying them up, using a weapon, and stealing from them. She robbed multiple men with this tactic, but no one came forward to report against her as the officers believed they were embarrassed. She made her living out of these things until in October 1991, she met 56-year-old Bill, who seemed to be a generous and kind man to her. He was an ex-Marine and ex-pilot and now worked part-time as a computer programmer and messenger at Cannon Mortgage in Tustin.
She met Mr. Nelson much like she met the other men at a Costa Mesa bar near his home. He coddled her and caressed her and treated her like a lady. He loved her. He was kind of what we might term in California old school. Still wanted to have a relationship, but wouldn't unless he married her.
Bill was 33 years older than Omaima, but their relationship quickly escalated and he proposed to her just 2 days after meeting her. The two hit it off and were married within a month, despite the fact that Bill was still legally married to his first wife.
They got in his red Corvette and they drove straight to Phoenix, where they found a justice of the peace and got married.
She and Bill spent their whirlwind honeymoon visiting his relatives in Texas and Arkansas, though it was a tense introduction. Bill's family had strong reservations about the marriage. Not only was he twice her age, but Omaima was younger than some of Bill's own children, making the relationship hard for them to accept. Still, Omaima charmed everyone she met with her gentle yet clever demeanor, casting an impression that seemed to ease some doubts, at least on the surface. Once the honeymoon ended and they moved into Bill's apartment in Costa Mesa, California, the cracks began to show. On the surface, they appeared to be a typical couple, but their seemingly ordinary life concealed something deep and unsettling, as claimed by Omaima about her marriage.
That her husband had raped her, had beat her up, had put her through a few days of bondage.
Even on Thanksgiving Day, Bill reportedly tried to abuse her, and Omaima responded with a tactic she was well known to use.
There must have been something special or different about Omaima's husband. We know he wasn't the first man she tied up. I think the earlier crimes of tying men up and robbing them helped her become more confident. There was something about him that she felt the need to destroy him.
This time, Omaima didn't stop and killed her husband. According to her claims, Bill sexually assaulted her that night, and as it was already a contentious act for her, she couldn't control her rage. Omaima took a knife and stabbed Bill repeatedly before beating him to death with a clothing iron.
She got mad and hit him, and then ended up saying, "Oh my God, he's now knocked out," went and got a knife and stabbed him. And then she goes, "Uh-oh, what am I going to do with the body?"
After committing this heinous crime, she did something which was way more terrifying than killing her own husband.
For a woman to deliberately murder is rare enough. For a woman to dismember a murder victim is far more rare. She was depraved to her very bones.
She, piece by piece, hung up his torso in the shower with coat hangers and other things in order to let the blood dry out.
Omaima had killed her husband on Thanksgiving Day, November 28, 1991. Over the following days, she dismembered his body, a grim task she continued until December 2, 1991, when she finally found herself exhausted and unable to continue alone. Seeking assistance, she approached her friend Jose, claiming her husband had assaulted her and she was seeking his help. But instead, horrified, Jose went straight to the police, setting the stage for a chilling investigation.
She said that she'd cut up her husband and put him in trash bags and needed some type of a truck or a vehicle to help her get the trash bags and dispose of them.
Now, it was crystal clear to the officers that the body they'd found indeed belonged to Bill, and his wife was the murderer, but her claims indicated otherwise. Omeima's claims of assault further seemed to be true with the marks on her body, but at the same time, she did something that made her suspicious.
Omeima was obviously distraught. She was very upset, as if she'd been crying. She had visible injuries to her face and her breast and her arms.
Although Omeima denied any help, the officers sent her for a medical examination to determine the actual cause of her injuries.
She was sent to the hospital for a sexual assault examination, and also to document all these injuries. She has a lot of lacerations and contusions and bruises on her body.
The investigators also contacted Bill's stepdaughter to discover anything unusual they could have noticed. It turned out he did contact her before being killed by his own wife.
Bill Nelson talked to his stepdaughter on Thanksgiving Day and told her that he had a turkey dinner and with all the fixins and everything was great. There were no problems.
As the investigation deepened, detectives turned to Bill's neighbors, hoping someone might have noticed something unusual. They did recall hearing a strange sound that night, a noise that had seemed ordinary at the time, but in light of recent events, took on a horrifying new significance.
The downstairs neighbor heard the garbage disposal running and grinding the entire weekend. Like a motor under stress.
It takes a great deal of effort to cut it up into multiple pieces, to package all those pieces so that they don't look human.
Thanksgiving, a day meant for celebration, became a day of horror for Bill Nelson as he suffered a gruesome death at the hands of his young bride. What began with his murder only escalated into savagery. In the days that followed, Omeima set to work dismembering his body with a disturbing methodical precision. Piece by piece, she tore apart his remains, crossing lines of cruelty. When authorities finally uncovered the evidence, they suspected that this level of savagery didn't come from a first-time offender.
25 or more wounds to the skull. It was a very violent death.
The way the body was cut up was actually done fairly professional.
Cut with such precision that the coroner's office was very concerned. Had she done this before?
What came next would haunt the investigators for years. When the medical examiners weighed all the remains found in Omeima's apartment and compared them to Bill's records, they realized something horrifying. Nearly 180 pounds of them were missing. Given the grim discoveries already made, it became apparent to the officers what could have happened. The implications were unthinkable, and the missing weight suggested that Omeima had disposed of large portions of his body. The police arrested Omeima the same day she was reported by her friend and was brought in for questioning. As haunting as these findings were about Bill, no one could have prepared them for the horrific revelation lurking in the depths of a hidden secret room. When they asked about the murder, Omeima quickly attempted to shift the entire focus of the case, taking the investigation down an unexpected and troubling path.
The interview with Omeima was 3 to 4 hours. And throughout the entire time, she never really sat down. She'd talk in third person. She'd talk about hallucinating.
When the officers asked her about the murder of Bill and why she killed him, she claimed that she did not kill her husband.
Did you tell Jose today that you killed your husband?
Tell my husband? He wished.
You wish, huh?
No, I did not.
You didn't tell Jose that?
He didn't ask it. He doesn't know what he talks about.
When officers confronted Omeima about the human flesh they discovered in the car she was driving, her response left them speechless. At that moment, the true depths of her detachment and cruelty became horrifyingly clear, making them realize that they were dealing with something far darker than they'd anticipated.
I thought that he killed somebody who had been in 4 years.
He was discovered with a plane full of marijuana.
He ends up doing a federal prison sentence for drug smuggling.
And stuff like that.
Bill had indeed gotten into some legal troubles when he was a pilot for smuggling drugs and electronics into Mexico from an airport in Texas. He'd gotten caught and had gone to prison for 4 years, but this was not the case here. As the officers called her in for questioning the second time, Omeima gave a glimpse of the reason which could have forced her to kill her husband. She said once they were married, Bill started showing his violent side, physically and sexually abusing her during their short union, but she still denied killing him.
Didn't know what tied me up, so he stood in my shoulders like this. right here, my chest.
Fat on your shoulder?
Yeah, and I couldn't breathe. I didn't know. I didn't believe he dead. He can't breathe.
After further pressing, Omaima accepted having killed her husband, but now she left them with another unsolved mystery.
I have confession.
I'm sorry?
I have confession. I don't remember how I killed him. All I remember, I get up like I did, and I found him in the trash bag. I wish I knew how I killed him, though. Something inside me told me that I had to do it, like demons.
By now, it was becoming clear to the officers that Omaima was suffering from mental illness, possibly because of her traumatic past. She then claimed something that further corroborated the suspicion.
2 women, there was blood all over them, and they walk and say, he must die, he must die.
Her demand made it clear to the officers that either Omaima genuinely had some serious mental issues or she was pretending to have some to reduce her sentence.
It was almost as if she was grabbing for anything she could to minimize her involvement in this horrific crime.
Their suspicion she was only claiming to be psychotic to reduce the punishment was further corroborated by the fact that this was not the first time she'd committed something like this.
She produced a handgun and threatened to kill him if he didn't give her more money.
These speculations became even more concrete when her medical report arrived. In the report, it was clear who was the attacker and who was the victim between Omaima and Bill.
The cuts on her body and her feet, her hands, her legs were consistent with somebody that had dismembered a human body.
This report also revealed that Omaima was not forced to get intimate. Then her psychiatrist made a shocking claim that left everyone in nothing but horror, and everyone was forced to doubt their loved ones.
She stated that she had cooked some of his ribs in the oven, put some barbecue sauce on it, and actually tasted it.
She said it tasted sweet, just like I like it.
Omaima was charged with first-degree murder, cannibalism, and evidence of premeditation for killing Bill for financial gain. The trial that followed was nothing short of a media spectacle. The gruesome details of the crime captured the public's morbid fascination. Omaima's trial began on December 1st, 1992, almost 1 year after Bill Nelson's murder. Even in the court, she claimed that it was her mind playing games on her and that the hallucinations had made her do this. She claimed that she couldn't even recall the moment of the murder or anything related to it.
I don't know where to go or who to call or what to do. And I got mixed, like confused. I don't know who I am or who's that person I'm not related to. I thought he's a stranger. I thought, what am I doing in this place?
However, her ex-boyfriend, Robert Hansen, to whom she'd also reached out to on the day of the murder, described a different story about her.
And she pulled the gun out, and she put the gun to my face and said she wanted, for me to give her money.
Omaima's psychologist also testified in her favor and put forward the state of her mental health. She explained how she was becoming delusional.
I found Omaima to be soft-spoken. I found her to be rather childlike. She was frequently very sad and often tearful. She began to fantasize that she was descended from ancient Egyptians.
The defense never argued that Omaima did not commit the murder, but instead they focused on the fact that she committed this crime due to hallucinations and because Bill was abusive to her. According to Omaima, the voices in her head not only urged her to kill her husband, but also directed her to dismember his body, an attempt to escape from Bill once and forever.
The ancient Egyptians believed that if your body is scattered, you will not go to the afterlife. So she cut him up.
She was making sure that if she got to the afterlife, he wouldn't be there.
However, she refused to explain why she cooked him.
She bragged to her psychiatrist that the ribs were the best part, that nothing was sweeter than the taste of her husband. She wanted his money and not him. That doesn't mean she had to consume him.
Omaima consistently maintained that she did not intend to murder Bill. On the other hand, the prosecutors pressed for murder charges, and she was found guilty of second-degree murder by the jury on January 12, 1993, after deliberation. She was also found guilty of assault with a deadly weapon for her attempted robbery of Robert. Omaima, then 24 years old, was sentenced to 25 years to life in the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, California. Omaima Ari Nelson's story is one of tragedy intertwined with horror, a true crime tale that continues to resonate as one of the most disturbing cases in California history. With about 130 pounds of Bill's body still missing, she was even compared to the famous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
The Jeffrey Dahmer case had just occurred before this, and that was kind of in the back of everybody's mind at that time. Are we going to turn up another Jeffrey Dahmer?
Although Omaima never confessed the key details of the account, the officers theorized what could have gone wrong on that fateful day.
We theorized that he entered into a consensual bondage session with Omaima. She tied him to the headboard and probably wanted some type of money or access to his wealth.
With Omaima Ari Nelson safely behind bars, Californians breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that one less dangerous figure roamed their streets. Yet, even in prison, Omaima fought to regain her freedom. She first applied for parole in 2006, only to be met with a firm denial. Undeterred, she made another attempt in 2011. But once again, her request was swiftly rejected, much to the relief of investigators who believed that her release would only spell more danger.
She should not be paroled. She's a very much danger to society because she's actually now doing the same stuff since she's been in prison that she did in the outside world. She got married to a gentleman that she knew at the time of Mr. Nelson's death. He was in his 80s at the time. Just a few years back, he died. He left her a large sum of money.
For the moment, Omaima remains unable to touch any money she might hope to claim on the outside. But if granted parole, her access to freedom and funds could change everything. With financial means and her freedom restored, she might be able to rebuild a life beyond the prison walls, something that has long haunted the victims' families and those who remember her chilling crime. In 2026, she'll once again be eligible for a parole hearing, a decision that will ultimately determine her fate. This case highlighted how traumatic experiences in childhood could lead to mental health issues in the future. With this, we ask you, what do you think about this case? Do you think Omaima was actually psychotic and killed her husband in a rage? Or did she simply kill him for the sake of his money? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section.
She was sort of suffering, I tapped her with the hockey stick, then I hugged her legs.
This 7-year-old girl Charlie is describing her last moments with her mother, Kelly Clayton, who was clubbed to death.
There's blood all over. She's been dragged. Blood on the wall. Blood with a hole in the wall. Looks like a face plant into the wall.
On the night of September 29th, 2015, Steuben County witnessed the dawn of horrors it had never faced before.
We're going to need all investigators. Homicide.
There were no clues, no murder weapon, and no clear answers. But the most unexpected witness of the crime, a 7-year-old girl, would reveal a horrifying secret that would change everything.
Could have been my dad, but he looked like my dad.
Help me, my wife is dead. Is she breathing at all? Nothing? No, trust me. Okay, is she beyond CPR? Yes. Trust me, what I'm here with my kids. You'll see when I get here. How long has she been down? I don't know, I just got home. We'll get help to you as quick as we can.
On September 28th, 2018, just after midnight, a nightmare began to unfold. There was no prior criminal history at this residence, but something about the tone of the call set Detective Dean Swan of Steuben County on edge.
I'm on Whiskey Creek, almost to Gannon now.
What they did not know was that within an hour, the entire county would be pulled at the scene they were heading to.
What's going on?
I'm just kidding. I'm the neighbor.
Okay.
Just came and got me out of bed. He's right in the house.
Okay, what happened?
His wife is in.
Okay.
What had this neighbor seen that he refused to go in? The shock of what the detectives saw next could be heard in the shift of their voice.
Anybody else in the house, Tom? Just you?
I got the kids at the neighbor's house.
Okay, where's she at? Oh, okay. I got a female, mid-30s, early 40s, beaten to death. Her face is completely beaten in. We gotta clear this house. Just cover me. I'm gonna go upstairs. I gotta go up and clear it. She got blood on the wall, blood on the steps. There's blood all over up here. Looks like she was attacked in bed. I gotta clear over here. The kids' rooms are over here. There's blood in the kids' room. Okay, kids' rooms, this one's clear. There's blood all over. She's been dragged. Blood on the wall. Blood with a hole in the wall. Looks like a face plant into the wall. All right, I'm gonna get a paramedic. Come in and verify.
This was when Allison Regan from the forensics team visited the crime scene and became the prime member in the investigation.
It is extremely bloody. Just watch the floor. There's blood there, blood up there. Follow me and just stay. I'll show you where stuff is. Try to stay to the right here a little bit. Her face is complete, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The sheriffs were horrified. This was a tight-knit community where most of them had children attending the same school as the Clayton kids. The fear was unmistakable in the voices of everyone around.
He say anything to you about anything?
When I was sound asleep, he knocked on the door. He asked my wife if we would take the kids. He said, "There, come with me, quick." I got in the truck and he flew back over.
Okay. Do you know, is there any problems here? Have you ever seen any problems here?
I haven't.
Okay.
The neighbor who had been there throughout ran anxiously back home to his wife and children because a violent maniac was on the loose.
As I'm going through the house, I can see where there'd been a violent assault on Kelly. There's blood splatter, there's pictures knocked off the walls. I could see where Kelly had been in her bedroom at the top of the stairs, and then a path down the hallway towards the children's bedrooms. Blood smear on the door handle to the child's room, and then going down the stairs, blood on the floor, damage to the walls where someone's either been forced through or fallen through, and then throughout the living area into the kitchen where Kelly was finally assaulted for the last time and killed. Severe damage to her face and head, so it appeared like a blunt force injury.
It appeared that Kelly endured a violent struggle in the final moments of her life, although no murder weapon was found. Outside the house, investigators discovered tire tracks. The detectives quickly removed the husband from the site, but grief and shock had left him erratic.
Where were you when this all went down?
Playing poker with my buddy.
Okay. She was home alone?
I came home and my daughter said there was a robber in the house and she saw them.
Okay, come on out here, man. Come on out here. I want you to have a seat. You don't need to see that anymore, okay? Just take some deep breaths, okay? I know, yeah. Just take some deep breaths and stuff. Just try to stay calm.
Pass out.
Well, sit down then. Come on over here and sit down.
I'm shaking.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. You want to sit down somewhere. Sit down.
I get that water.
Yeah, we'll get you a water. Take it easy, bud. Take it easy.
According to Tom, his daughter had seen the robber. After analyzing the crime scene, the investigators began piecing together a theory of what had transpired and forming a rough profile of the violent murderer. Could this be the work of someone close to the victim?
I'm wondering if he had a domestic with her. She face planted. Boom. Then he puts her out in the kitchen. In her face, you can see how her face is beat in. Husband.
Just then, an emotional twist disrupted their focus. Kelly's grieving sister, Kim Bourgeois, arrived at the scene.
Here they come. You're gonna have to stop them. Jeez.
The weight of her sorrow was palpable, but when she managed to regain her composure, she shared something that changed everything. She revealed that Tom, Kelly's husband, had kept a large sum of cash in the house, a detail that could point to financial motives. Adding to the intrigue, she disclosed that Tom had recently fired several employees at ServPro, the organization he worked for. Was it possible that one of them had sought revenge? The detectives shared their preliminary suspicions towards the husband Tom, but Kim quickly pushed back. This defense raised more questions than answers, and it was simply not adding up. While the details about cash and potential revenge were compelling, the robbery theory began to unravel. Burglary was a rarity in this quiet town, and the crime scene carried peculiar signs that didn't fit the profile of a simple break-in. What was really going on here? The body cam footage that followed captured a pivotal moment, the police coming to a chilling conclusion. This wasn't a robbery at all.
The side door's open, that door's open. No forced entry on the door. Okay.
We checked the safe. We checked her jewelry. There was no sign of theft at all. I think that was kind of the perspective was, okay, we have no evidence of a robbery, so what do we have?
What they had was a 7-year-old witness. Investigators now turned to Kelly Clayton's little girl, Charlie, who had seen her mother being beaten to death. Nothing could have prepared them for this heartbreaking interview.
Can you tell me what he looked like?
He was wearing jeans, a black long-sleeve shirt, and a mask.
On that doomed night, Charlie's father had tucked her in bed and left for Monday night poker with his friends. But then, how had the sickening tragedy played out?
Definitely lots more toys.
Check this out. You get to teach me how to tell time.
Police do the best they can to make the space comfortable for the 7-year-old child. There are blocks in the room.
Well, Charlie, do you know why we brought you here today? Okay, we're going to have to talk a little bit about last night, okay? Or if I ask a question that you're not certain about or that you don't understand, can you let me know? Okay, all right. You know what a truth and a lie is? What's the truth?
It means that it really happened, and a lie is that it didn't happen.
Right, very good. So,
You're so smart.
As she began to speak of the night, her tone carried a chilling calm that made the investigators shift uneasily in their seats.
In the middle of the night, this guy came and started hitting my mom with like this pipe thingy.
okay. Can you tell me more about that?
There was blood everywhere.
Okay.
On my door, on the floor, not on the carpet though.
Charlie heard her mother's frantic footsteps rushing toward her room. The door handle turned as her mother screamed, "Run, Charlie, run!" Charlie followed her into the lobby. There he was, a bad man in a black ski mask hurting her mother. She saw the fight and returned to the room to protect her little brother.
And I thought she was dead when she was laying on the ground. And Daddy was out playing cards. We were basically alone for like 20 minutes. Then he came home and he was like, oh my god. Because he saw my mom on the floor with blood all over.
Okay.
So here's a 7-year-old girl that saw one of the most traumatic things you're ever going to see in your life. And she's a smart girl, super smart girl. And I think her mind was trying to work through it and figure out, what did I just see?
As the interviewers gently guided Charlie through her memories, they sought any detail, no matter how small, that might bring them closer to identifying the perpetrator.
You remember what the thing looked like that he was hitting on me with?
A metal pipe.
How did the robber leave?
The garage.
And what did you see after that?
She was sort of suffering.
Okay.
I tapped her with the hockey stick. Then I hugged her leg.
Okay. All right. And where was Mom when you hugged her?
Laying down in the kitchen with blood all over.
Okay.
As Charlie's interview unfolded, a heavy sense of anxiety hung in the air, wrapping the adults around her with tense anticipation.
My first thought, Charlie has the most beautiful blue eyes. Most beautiful eyes. And all I could think of was what those eyes saw.
Then, the 7-year-old spoke one haunting line that unraveled the chilling truth behind Kelly's death.
What did the robber look like?
He looked like my dad. Could have been my dad, but he looked like my dad.
How did he look like your dad?
The mask and his jeans.
Have you seen anybody wear that mask before?
My dad.
Did the robber say anything?
The robber didn't say anything, but because what if it was my daddy? He could recognize his voice.
To the point where then she convinces herself that it could have been daddy.
Yeah.
Because at first she's like, it couldn't be daddy because who would take care of us?
As a law enforcement professional, we learn how to kind of compartmentalize, but at the same time, that's got to be really emotionally impactful on you.
It is. It stayed with me for a long time. It was heartbreaking to hear because she's processing it as a 7-year-old.
After answering the sheriff, Charlie let her emotions show for the first time in the interview.
It's about my mom and where is she at?
And she hasn't comprehended that her mother's dead, right? Then she wants to know where her mother is. Like, how is Mommy?
We need to find that out for you.
We'll find out for you, sweetie.
We'll find that.
Okay.
I said, I don't know, sweetie. I knew at that time, obviously, but she needed to be with family when she learned that, not with police officers.
As Charlie's heartbreaking interview concluded, the detectives sprung to action. From the start, their instincts had pointed to Tom, and now they had something solid to back it up.
When he rode to the police station, he also said, hey, you'll find out that I wasn't here. I was at a poker game.
Yeah. He doesn't know who did it, and that obviously it was a robbery, and that he was at a poker game, and he has a solid alibi.
The investigators brought Tom in and confronted him with a devastating claim. His own daughter had seen him ending Kelly's life. Tom was utterly shocked and adamantly denied the accusation. He insisted it was impossible and blamed the murder on the burglar. Once again, he clung to the same alibi he'd given from the start, that is the 911 call he made. He was not even in the same town. But the detectives weren't convinced. They revisited his 911 call. What they uncovered was chilling.
Is she breathing at all? Nothing?
No, trust me.
Okay, is she beyond CPR?
Yes. Just trust me. Come on, I'm here with my kids.
The 911 call to him was over, but the mic was still open. He was still on the line. The line was still open, and he went from this hysterical guy to being with his daughter in the house saying, did you see a robber?
Did you see Mommy? Did you see a robber? You saw them?
The call hadn't ended when Tom thought it had, and it captured a side of the Tom that sent shivers down their spine. Detectives questioned whether Tom was subtly planting the idea of a robber in his daughter's mind before the investigators even arrived. Who was Tom, really? A darker side of him was starting to show through the cracks. Until now, he was seen as a local hockey star with a magnetic personality.
They were superstars. Everybody was in awe over these guys.
The Agitator Award goes to Tom Clayton.
Clayton coming back at him.
Kelly and Tom had been married for 7 years. Their relationship began to bloom when she saw him in action on the field. He quickly became her dream boy. He was known for his temper and flirtatious demeanor.
He was an instigator on the ice. Trash talking, that kind of thing.
When Tom ventured into the business world, he chose a ServPro franchise, and it turned out to be a surprising success. Tom was the kind of person everyone saw as a Casanova, with a big personality, bigger sense of humor, and endless flirtation. Traits that were considered to be charming, until someone ended up dead. However, investigators were far less impressed with him than his social circle seemed to be. From the moment they first laid eyes on him, something about him felt off.
Tom, where were you when this all went down?
Playing poker with my buddy.
Okay. She was home alone?
I came home and my daughter said there was a robber in the house.
Was Tom the true villain in Kelly's story? Tom was brought into the police barracks within hours of Kelly's murder. However, the evidence was going to fall far from their expectations.
Looking for anything from Kelly that might be on him, on his clothes, and there was nothing found.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Allie, given the way that you paint the picture of the scene, it would be impossible for the offender to not have gotten Kelly's blood on them.
Absolutely.
So he has no blood on him at all?
No.
He didn't have any blood on him, not even the amount one might expect from someone trying to save a loved one.
Tom doesn't in any way make contact with his deceased wife's body?
He didn't.
Despite the absence of any incriminating evidence against Tom, investigators still reached the conclusion that he was his wife's killer.
You have to look at the circumstantial stuff, like what does his daughter say? What does the crime scene look like? How was the person killed? All of those things in this case would suggest that this is a domestic homicide.
Then the investigators decided to act upon Charlie's identification and their own observations.
A mother of 2 is dead, and now her husband is charged with the murder. Thomas Clayton was arraigned in Clayton Town Court Tuesday on a second-degree murder charge for the death of Kelly Clayton.
But there was a catch regarding Tom's arrest. Nobody found him shady, except for the investigators, not even Kelly's family. So, when investigators claimed they had found the killer in him, it hit hard. But before the community could fully process Tom as a killer, suddenly a new villain emerged. Accusations surfaced against the investigative team, claiming they were purposely trying to show Tom in a light of their choosing, and were hiding the side that did not align with their narrative. The investigators were criticized for quickly pointing fingers at a man, yet failing to realize they had no evidence to charge him. Tom also had no prior criminal record.
They've now charged Thomas Clayton with the murder of his wife, even though he had a rock-solid alibi.
The murder was a brutality of its own kind, leaving chaos in its wake. Was the testimony of a 7-year-old identifying a man in a ski mask truly enough for a conviction?
He called me and he had just said, that it wasn't him. He loved her. He never would do anything like that to hurt her.
The investigators had nothing to back their claim. No motive, no concrete evidence, not even a murder weapon that tied Tom to the crime scene. When the pressure started to build against them, the investigators revisited their claims, beginning from Tom's alibi. Tom was at the Miller's house in a nearby town just like every Monday. The investigators were in for a shock when they learned what this alibi was about to reveal. The Millers not only confirmed that Tom had been there playing poker with them, but also vouched for him as a man who could never hurt his wife. They were certain the police had the wrong man. However, the police's take on what the Millers had to say was different.
But they're friends, right? I mean, we're not going to put a whole lot of...
Right.
Not necessarily put a whole lot of weight behind that.
Right.
Offer anything up about his relationship with Kelly or anything going on in the household that they were aware of.
I think they kind of mimicked what Kim said, is that they're kind of the all-American couple and they loved each other and were, madly in love.
The investigators didn't take their words at face value, but the evidence? That was something even they couldn't deny.
Yeah, from the burned dairy in South Corning, there was video of the vehicle going by at the time when...
Tom's vehicle.
Yes, a ServPro vehicle going by within the time frame of when he said he left the poker game to when he arrived at home and made the 911 call.
This was just the beginning of the realization for the investigators that they had, in fact, made a mistake. Tom also had a ServPro GPS tracker in his truck, which confirmed his exact timings. He left his house, went to the Millers, and then returned home at 12:35 a.m., from where he called 911 within 3 minutes of arriving. There were no gaps in his alibi. He never left the site of the Millers while playing, except for the brief washroom breaks. It would have been impossible for him to travel to another town, commit the murder, and return within that time frame. It did not look good for the investigators.
You always look at the people closest spouse. You always look at the surviving spouse first. Right. But everything, kind of eliminates Tom from the picture at this point, right? Mm-hmm. He's got no blood on his clothing. He's got no physical injuries, which surely he would have had if, the way the crime scene looks, right? He's got witnesses who are saying he's with them during the time that you believed in, that you believed that the murder happened.
So amends were made to reverse the damage that had been done, and Tom was granted bail.
Clearly, police knew they still had a lot of work to do.
Tom now was out of the picture and seemingly free from the prospects of jail. Meanwhile, the investigative team was running on empty. They were nowhere near solving what was now the most horrifying crime this town had ever seen. The killer was out there, and all they had were dead ends. On one end, Tom was cleaning up his home and scrubbing away the bloodstains that still lingered on his walls, as if trying to erase the horrors of his past. On the other side, the detectives decided to start fresh. This time, they were not looking into the killer, but the victim, Kelly. Every text message, every phone call, every trace of her digital life was now under their microscope.
So I did Kelly's phone. I could see, her last text messages, but indicate that she had some other relationship, nothing between her and Tom that would make me think of domestic violence.
For Kelly's family, the silence during this time was unbearable. One loved one had been brutally murdered, while another had been arrested and later released. The grief remained raw, as if Kelly had been taken from them only yesterday.
And I wanted to hold her, but I couldn't.
And justice was nowhere in sight. Days passed by chasing ghosts. The investigators were questioning the family members. While Tom couldn't think of anyone who might want Kelly dead, his sister-in-law, Kim Bourgeois, offered a guess.
The Bourgeois family had told the police that there's a couple people from Tom's business who
that he had recently
fired, and you might want to look at them.
Yeah.
And those people certainly would have known, the kind of business that Tom did and whether or not he was going to have money in his house.
Yeah.
Maybe looking for a way to get back just to steal his money.
Correct.
It was possible that one of the employees Tom had fired from ServPro planned to get revenge. But just when it seemed like the case was slipping into darkness, a single lead emerged and changed the entire direction of the case.
I remember my daughter coming to me saying, "Mom, Tom just told us he fired Michael Beard." And I remember us going, to the investigator and giving them that name.
Although Tom had fired him, Michael was an employee that even the family knew. He was Tom's right-hand man for everything he required. The investigators then decided to call Michael in for an interview.
One of the extraordinary things about Michael Beard is how incredibly ordinary he is. He had children in South Carolina. He also had a child in upstate New York. He was a primary breadwinner. He was living paycheck to paycheck. And so when he met Thomas Clayton, this local sports hero who had a business, he thought his life was changing for the better.
When Michael walked in, he was not only polite to the investigators, but also highly cooperative in their investigation. He described his relationship with Tom as strictly professional, though he acknowledged that Tom had always been kind to him.
I would work hard for him. He would give me little rewards, like he brought me a bicycle because one job where we was working at, I ended up catching a cab. So I told him I couldn't afford the cab every day to get to this job. So the deal was to him was, if he brought me a bike, to pay that back, I would just have to work hard for it. I said, well, I'm doing that already. And one day he came back with a bicycle.
Not just Tom, he also told them he had a distant but cordial relationship with Kelly as well. Michael expressed his sorrow over the loss of her life.
She was a pretty cool person. There's been a few times where she went to go pay bills or something and the kids didn't want to go. So she asked if I mind watching them for her until she come back. I said, hey, that give me time to quit working, plus I'm getting paid. So, we was pretty cool.
Not only did Michael tell the investigators this accusation was not true, but this dismissal from work also marked the beginning of his downfall.
I spoke in my defense. There was no proof of me drinking on the job. I do drink, but I don't drink on the job.
What state did it leave you in? You lost your job.
I was basically in broke.
And the worst part for Michael was that Tom was not only his ex-boss, he was also the landowner of the house he rented for $1,000 a month.
This was a guy who was living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, when he had a job. Now, without a primary job, a man who was struggling is now really beginning to struggle.
In one clean sweep, he was not only out of any source of income, he was also now behind on rent. But Michael Beard's misfortune didn't end there. Tom turned out to be his true obstacle, a rich, narcissistic man who seemed unaffected by everything.
According to Beard, that Thomas had started eviction proceedings against him, and he had to move out.
What Michael Beard did not know was that the story he narrated to the investigators had rage, motive, and hatred, everything that Kelly Clayton's crime scene had screamed. Since Michael was being cooperative, the investigators decided to strike while the iron was hot.
He's very cooperative, claimed to have no ill will towards Tom or Kelly. And he gave consent for his phone. I picked it up at the sheriff's department, and they're like, we don't think he's involved. So when you get around to this phone, take a look. But I'm like, I gotta get on this today.
Detective Allison was not ready for the twisted secrets hiding in Michael's phone.
When I initially populate the report, there's a lot of deleted material, deleted text messages. Initially didn't see the phone calls. He had deleted that. But the one thing I did see was some powering events. So as I'm looking at the timeline of the phone, I can see when the phone's powered on and powered off. And there's a portion of time there when I know Kelly made her last text message, and I know when Tom made that 911 call. And within that time frame, I have Michael Beard powering his phone off and then back on afterwards. So I was like, man, I don't know if it is anything, but I better let someone know.
Had Michael been at the crime scene at the time of the murder? The next day, the detectives were fueled with the confidence of closing in on their possible suspect. But they were about to receive a call that was going to change everything they thought they knew about this twisted mystery. Lucky Miller, the woman who was playing poker with Tom on Monday night, rang up the police. She told them how earlier that day she had run into Tom at a local casino.
I came down the escalator and I hear, Lucky. Lucky. He's like, hi, Lucky. He goes, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I was going to take her away on a second honeymoon. And I'm like, Tom, I don't know what to believe.
Lucky and Greg had defended Tom with all their might, but her recent interaction with Tom left a worm of doubt in her mind. As she was unwinding back at home, something struck her memory.
She says she's up in the shower, and she's thinking, and she says, oh my goodness, Thomas used my phone to place a call during the poker game.
This is her cell phone?
This is her cell phone.
Does Tom not have his own cell phone?
He had his own cell phone. He said his phone was in the truck.
He walked up and asked me if he could borrow my phone. I'm like, yeah, sure.
As she recalled this detail, she checked her phone and the call logs, only to find nothing. The lack of any records seemed more suspicious than finding any calls or texts. Because if Tom had taken Lucky's phone, why had he done so? And if he called someone, why on earth would he delete the number?
Listen, maybe it is plausible. Maybe his battery went dead, or maybe he didn't have service, right? There's reasons for that, but who does he call? Like, what are the records? When you finally get those records back, who does he make that call to?
We know that he placed a call from Lucky Miller's phone at 10:53.
When they pulled the records, they found Tom had dialed the number from Lucky's phone twice in the middle of the game. And when the reports revealed the name of the receiver, it shocked the detectives to their core.
He calls a guy named Michael Beard.
So what do you come to learn about him?
That he's been fired a couple of times for stealing. He has been involved with the criminal justice system in South Carolina.
Michael Beard was Tom's ex-employee at ServPro. He had also fired him over drinking at work, but he also dialed his number hours before his wife's murder. The facts were dizzying.
Anytime something needed to come up, he called me, I would go fix that.
You like his go-to guy if he needs something done, his handyman. How would he describe?
He described me as being a reliable worker. I'm the first one he called. If he needed someone to stay longer, he knew I would stay longer. First there, last to leave.
The next day, Michael was interviewed again, this time under increased pressure. Meanwhile, another guest was brought in for separate questioning. His girlfriend's account would help verify the details of each story Michael had practiced. They also brought in a specialized interviewer familiar with Michael's background in narcotics, hoping to leverage that history during questioning.
They get a feeling that something's not quite right here. But also we learned that Michael Beard has been fired from both businesses that Thomas was an owner or participating in.
ServPro and a business called Paul Davis.
Yes. We learned that he's got money trouble.
The financial crunch was pointing to a dark corner of the case that investigators had yet to examine.
Thomas fires him more than once, apparently. He worked for him in two different companies. But he rents him an apartment.
Yes.
And now, of course, he can't pay his rent because he got fired.
Correct.
And he's a thief.
And he's a thief. Yep.
And this is who Tom is calling shortly before his wife is murdered.
And so Tom's name was back on the list of the suspects, and this time in bold. The case was now steering investigators into unexplored territory.
We couldn't get rid of the thought that Michael Beard somehow he's involved.
Technology had once provided the strongest evidence to rule Tom out as a suspect, but now it was the very tool investigators were using to build a case against him.
So we were looking at not only the physical devices, the cell phones, doing the downloads from those, but we also had the cell phone records from the service providers, which provided thousands of points of data to be able to connect Beard to Clayton. We could see patterns of behavior and get some of those details because even the messages were cryptic. So we could see that there was a previous occasion when Tom Clayton was out of town that Beard powers his phone off, goes out to Clayton.
He goes to the house.
And on his way back, sends a text message, "Call me when you can," to Tom Clayton. It's only a few days before the homicide occurred.
This was far from the end of the deadly collaboration between Michael and Tom. There was something dark brewing between the two.
In the week before the homicide, before the murder, Beard and Clayton were communicating. There were calls in the morning, calls in the afternoon, they were texting. Beard owed Clayton rent, but it didn't seem to be, this is the guy that was just fired.
The investigators' instincts were screaming that there was a conspiracy, but this time they had to reach the bottom of this mystery on their own. They knew the route Tom had taken the night Kelly Clayton was murdered because of his GPS tracker. However, that afternoon included a stop at a gas station, and that is where they zeroed in.
And he says, "Hey, I need to use your phone because something's wrong. I'm not getting good cell coverage."
But we know his phone is on and working because we can see that from the data.
And the call that he made from M&M Auto, he places it to Michael Beard.
I'm thinking, what's going on here?
They were closing in on the depths of the conspiracy when, during the interrogation, Holly, Michael's girlfriend, revealed that the couple had been harboring a sinister secret.
She tells them that, hey, we were hard up for money. We were going to get evicted.
He said, you know what happened?
And during that time, she reveals that there was an agreement between Tom and Beard to kill Kelly.
After the girlfriend revealed the truth to the investigators, it did not take too long for Michael's story to fall apart.
He, throughout the entire interview, became more and more emotional, started exhibiting signs of like nervousness, like his stomach was growling. Signs that, in my experience, are very typical of somebody that's guilty of something and just kind of waiting and stressing about the truth actually coming out. And he kind of put his head down, and I was close to him, sitting in front of him. I was like, "Mike, is $10,000 the reason that you killed Kelly?" And he kind of paused for a second, then responded, "Yeah, that's why I did it."
In a confession, Michael revealed to the investigators that Tom had offered him the money in return for burning his house down after killing Kelly. Investigators had previously found gas in the garage earlier, but its purpose had eluded them. Now the first thought that struck the detectives was, were they planning to let the children perish alongside their mother in the fire? Fortunately, that wasn't the case. The initial plan was for the children to be at Kelly's sister, Kim's house on that fateful day. Michael disclosed to the investigators he did not set the house on fire because he had gotten scared after killing Kelly Clayton.
I think the homicide itself was more brutal than he had anticipated, and he said in his words that he got scared.
Everything fell right into place when Michael showed them the spot where he had discarded the murder weapon.
There was a piece in the house that matched the maul handle that was found off the side of the road here. The maul is like a sledgehammer, but there's no actual sledgehammer head on it, so it's just a handle.
It was positive for DNA of Kelly Clayton and blood still on the murder weapon.
There were shards of that same handle at the scene.
He also showed them to the puddle in which he had thrown the house keys that Tom had provided him with. Other than that, he also pointed them to the clothes he wore while committing the crime. The evidence was solid, and so was Michael's motive. But the same was not true for the mastermind of this heinous crime. The investigators wondered why Tom had orchestrated this brutal act. Was it a marriage that had turned sour? Was there an extramarital affair? What had led to the pure hatred the crime scene displayed so vividly? To uncover the motive, investigators turned to a third party, a man who was friends with Beard and had been offered a role in this brutal conspiracy.
He asked me about doing the job. I'm thinking maybe it might be some type of drug deal or something. As we start writing out, Mike's telling about the job, he's saying he's getting, I think it was $3,000 he's getting. He's saying, I'll pay you $500. I'm like, all right. And along the way, he says, I'm at to kill a bitch. I do remember him saying that.
Shortly after Beard confessed, he was arrested. In the end, investigators realized that their collective instinct about Tom since the day of the crime had been right all along. However, when they looked into Tom with a fresh perspective, they realized there was an even darker side than their initial perception of him.
In subsequent interviews with persons that Tom had had affairs with.
Hold on. So you actually learned that Tom is having extramarital affairs, plural, more than one?
Yes. Yeah, he had several of them.
When I look at it, he's just so self-absorbed. He's the only person he cares about, right?
He's thrown out 1,000 lines and getting 10 bites.
And again, not a big town.
No.
People kind of know each other. People talk.
Yep.
A lot of them would just say, well, that's just Tom. He hits on everyone, right?
He hits on everyone.
Yeah.
Tom was known to be passionate as a man and a sports person, but his planning was that of a shrewd, cold-blooded killer. He had meticulously planned his wife's murder for months, including gradually pushing Michael into financial desperation to manipulate him into becoming a part of his sinister scheme. However, the investigators were still lacking a solid motive. When they looked into Tom's finances, they uncovered an ugly secret. Tom was apparently a successful businessman, but despite this, his finances were still running dry, and he was failing to sustain the lifestyle he was used to.
There was a substantial life insurance policy that Tom had on Kelly. We determined throughout the investigation that it had actually been recently upped.
This evil conspiracy had been cooking in Tom's head for at least a year, at which time he had increased the life insurance payout on Kelly. And within a year, he was ready to reap the fruit. However, he was cunning enough to cover his tracks well, because it was not just Kelly he had increased the insurance on.
A year before Kelly's death, Thomas Clayton doubled the family's life insurance policy. His life insurance policy was increased to $2 million. Kelly's was increased to $1 million.
Tom believed Kelly had spent a significant amount of his money, and for him, the marriage was already over. He openly spoke about his frustrations with Kelly and made it clear he was done with the relationship. However, he confided in several people that there was only one reason holding him back from filing for divorce.
He'd made the statement more than one time that he couldn't afford a divorce.
I can't leave my wife for you because my
She'll
wife will
take
clean
everything.
me out.
Yeah.
The investigators had won against all odds in this twisted case, and there was just one challenge that remained. They needed to build the strongest possible case, and they could not afford to repeat their last mistake with Tom.
But first, we had to prove Beard actually did the murder.
So we go back to the crime scene.
The DNA that was collected from the crime scene was of the victim, but they also found traces of Michael Beard's blood. Apart from this, a dramatic sequence of proof came from a CCTV recording from a storage unit beside a nearby ServPro. The cruel plan was laid bare in this footage. On the evening of the murder, they found a red Dodge van arriving at the ServPro. Shortly after, it left the premises, followed closely by a ServPro vehicle. The location tracked through the phones showed that the ServPro vehicle left for a gym where Charlie was performing. In the meantime, the red van reached Michael's residence. The ServPro vehicle was driven by Tom, and the red van had Michael in the driver's seat. This proved Michael and Tom had been together before the murder, hatching and conniving. But according to the plan, what was to happen next? Tom had an escape plan that was beyond shocking.
Attorney that's representing Tom Clayton comes forward and said, hey, there's a bag and we'd like to retrieve that if that's okay. It's in a truck that Tom had possessed.
What's in the bag?
About $100,000 in cash, Tom's passport, and the kids' passports.
But not Kelly's passport.
Not Kelly's passport.
Tom was going to leave the country along with his children after he got his wife brutally killed. However, the perfectly evil plan failed. After gathering astonishing information about Tom's conspiracy, the investigators arrested him.
But you still got a problem. There's no physical evidence connecting him to the crime. He's actually granted bail.
Yes.
Which is also pretty unusual in a murder case.
Yes.
I felt so.
The investigators had charged Tom with first-degree murder, but they were concerned that he might win his case in court and regain custody of his children, who were staying with Kim at the time.
He did not kill his wife. He didn't hire anybody to kill his wife.
The long-dreaded day, filled with both anxiety and anticipation, had finally arrived.
After more than 75 witnesses and 500 pieces of evidence, the jury began deliberating yesterday around 10:30 a.m.
Thomas Clayton was found guilty as charged. It came as a huge relief to Kelly's family and the investigation team who had worked tirelessly to find justice for her.
I told my sister from the night she was murdered that we would not stop fighting for her. We would not stop fighting for justice for her.
Tom was sentenced to life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole, and the same went for Michael Beard.
You know, if this crime had been committed 20 years ago, perhaps he would have gotten away with it. Fortunately, we had all this digital evidence, we had all this GPS evidence, we had all this modern technology.
DNA.
Kim later adopted them, and they continued to live under her care. Following the tragedy, Tom and Kelly's children initially found refuge with Kim Bourgeois. But as time passed, Kim legally adopted them and they found their home with her. For Kelly's family, the verdict brought justice, but no solace. The pain of losing her was compounded by the haunting realization that they had never truly known the man they once called family.
I stood there as her matron of honor and smiled and watched her marry him. Now you find out he is a monster, a sociopath.
Charlie believed she had seen Daddy's eyes in the perpetrator, but it was not Tom. Did the children instinctively feel the upcoming chaos coming for their mother, unlike other people around Kelly? Was Tom's evil plan so perfect that he would not have been caught had it not been for the digital proof?